Hi guys, today we're going to add a simple AI character to our puzzle. We're going to create a character similar to our player character, and we're going to add an AI controller to it so that it's controlled not by the player but by, in-game AI. And we're going to make that character step over the pressure plate. So instead of using the cube, like last time, we're going to sort of trick the character to press this thing, and we're going to leave the AI character right there so the prize is visible and we can collide with it. Right, so if it says lighting needs to be rebuilt, just go to build, build lighting only, and then it will go away. So the first thing to do is for us to, let this thing finish. And then select third-person character blueprint under content, third-person BP blueprints. We're going to Control-C, Control-V. Alternatively, you can just duplicate, Control-W. F2 to rename. We're going to rename this to AI character. So it's a copy of the player blueprint, and we're going to modify it. So if we double click that, we should get all the stuff that the player blueprint has, something that we don't really need. So I'm going to delete all of this because we're going to add custom logic to it. Controls are not needed either, because we're not controlling our AI, at least manually. Compile, save. Physics handle that we added to our player character, not needed. Camera, not needed either, so delete all the camera stuff. Everything else is fine. Compile, save. Now let's drag it into the viewport, into our scene graph, and move the character over here somewhere. Yeah, you may want to change the scaling, the snap value to 1, and then position it perfectly on the ground. Perfectly-ish, I guess. I'm going to move the character further away because what I want to do is get close to the character. Press E on the character, because if you remember, E was the kind of action key, so we can use something. And in this case, we're going to overload E with the ability to talk to this character, or I guess just, call a function on him so that the character starts following us. If we just play now, the character is just going to stand there. That's fine. So what I want to do is get close, press E, have this character follow us, and then go over here so that the character stands on this thing. Press E again, character stops following us, thus standing on the pressure plate, and then we can complete the level. Given that last time we added the cube thing, I wonder if we can use that as well, but not necessarily in this video. Maybe in the next video we're going to create another pressure plate, so that one needs to be held down by the cube, the other one needs to be held down by this AI character. So for AI character to move around, they need to have a navigation mesh object. So for that, we're going to use volumes. It's this place actors menu, which you can access from the window. So if it's closed on your screen, then go to window, click place actors so that this thing appears. From there, you can drag this thing called nav mesh bounds volume. Essentially, marks an area that is walkable. We're going to scale it up to contain, well, we don't really need to contain the entire level, because essentially we're just going to get close to this guy and have him get here. So I'm just going to increase this in a way that fits us, where the character is and where the pressure plate is. That's basically it. Save current. So nav mesh bounds volume just going to stay there as part of our game world. What we want to do now is test the AI characters and movements. So go back to AI character blueprint. In the event graph, we want tick, event tick. So this is the standard call every frame tick. Inside this onUpdate function, we are going to do something. We're going to move. We're going to call simple move. Navigation is nice enough to provide some really simple functions for us to call. So simple move to actor takes two things, controller and goal. Controller is the thing that controls this character, and goal is your target towards which you're going to move. So in FXGL's perspective, this is like follow component. So get AI component or get AI controller is what we want. It needs to take a controlled actor, which is us. So I'm going to get a reference to self, plug it in here, plug this thing in here, and we're going to call this. Now all we need to do is just get the goal, which is the target actor towards which we're moving, because this is simple move to actor. Compile, save. We probably want a variable, right? Let's call it target. In the variable type, it's going to be actor object reference. Now, how are we going to set it? So this is the target, right? This is the target. And well, for now, I want to make this instance editable and then just check. If you remember last time, I was saying that we should really implement the simplest thing that can work and then go from there. So compile, save. We're going to set it manually for now. So select your AI character, find the default submenu. In the target, select your player character, which is third person character. Save current and play. So you can see that this character can follow us, which is good. We're going to tweak some settings so it doesn't just, stand right behind us. Maybe get some distance kind of thing. Yeah, bottom line is this works. So let's go ahead and not set this. So I'm going to revert my changes. I'm going to clear this. I'm going to then not make it instance editable, so it's not editable. And this target will be set by the game itself when we ask the character to follow us. In which case we also need to check if this is set or not. Yeah, how about that? Just is valid. So event tick goes here, checks if this target is valid. If it is, then it calls simple move. Compile, save. Let's test. It shouldn't move now because there is no target. and there are no error messages or warnings, which means everything is working fine. It's checking for null and doing its own thing. Now, all that is left to do is to set this target. And I'm thinking is what we can do is go up to this character and then press E. If you remember from last time, usable component is an actor component that we added. It had this event dispatcher called unuse. And then when we call that, it calls a function that belongs to a specific blueprint. Now, this thing is powerful, and you're going to see how powerful this can be because it can also take parameters. So we can actually send something. In which case, we don't really care what kind of object is in front of us when we press E, when we invoke an action. So if we go to third-person character, which is the player, you can find this sequence of nodes where we check if the thing that we're looking at is a usable component or usable thing, basically. And if it is, then we're going to use it. Now, currently we're just calling this without passing any parameters into the function itself, but we can define one. So inputs, we can say new parameter. Actually, let me just go back a little. So usable component, right? Find event dispatchers, click on use, and you will be able to edit its parameters. Inside inputs, you will find this plus button. And when you click on that, it will allow you to add a new parameter over here. This new parameter is going to be user or caller. Let's go with caller because it's the actor that called this function. It's going to be actor object reference, compile, save. Now, this is going to probably complain because we're not passing any color. And that color should be us, right? The third person character itself, so it's self. So everyone is now happy. Compile, save this thing. Let's just go back and check how button is behaving. Yeah, that's fine. We're taking color in, but we're not doing anything. So you can see that this lamp over here, which we're calling a button, is or has a usable component. So it's usable. Now this AI character is also going to have a usable component. I will also be usable, which is great that each actor is going to behave differently on the same call. So we're providing concrete functionality to this abstract function called use. Compile, save. Select usable component. In the details panel, you will find the events. Click on the first one, which is use, and you will get this thing. So this is where we're going to set the target. There we go. And now we also want to be able to reset the target, right? Actually, what we can do is add an internal state of some sort, like is following. How about that? I think this will simplify the whole process because we won't need to really check for validity of the target. Have a variable, a Boolean variable called is following. I really need to stick to the convention, so should be uppercase. Is following. This thing should also be uppercase, I guess. So is following is a Boolean. Compile save. Is following is, well, by default is false, which is fine. Get is following. And branch check. This goes in here now. So if we are following somebody, then call this. We no longer need to check for validity because we're going to assume that this is fine. If we're not following anyone, then don't do anything. Yeah, that looks better. In which case, this thing is going to set that, and it's also going to change the state of is following. I think we can use flip-flop for that, which is going to alternate between A and B outputs. Starting with A, and then gives us this thing. Okay, so we can use this to set is following. Yep. It's going to be called first. I can't really see this line, but it's there. So set is following based on is A or not A. Every time we press this, it's going to alternate. And then this thing is going to go here. It starts with A, so let us just check this. It's going to set, no, B also needs to call this, right? And then this will be set to the caller, but we just ignore the result because is following will be set to false next time we press this. So it's true, and then false. This gets to set to false. Because it's false, the update function doesn't do anything. Okay, that looks fine. Compile save. How we implemented everything we need for the movement. It also has usable component. Okay, let's try this. So we move around. This character is not doing anything. We press E on the character by facing it, because if you remember, the line trace goes from the center of our actor and towards the forward direction. Okay, pressing E on this thing does nothing. So I need to figure out why it doesn't work. Whenever you're having problems with line traces, it's useful to enable the debug in the line trace, which is in our case inside this function, right? Get log hit result, which is something that we implemented last time. Draw debug type for line trace for duration. Compile and save. So it's going to show up over there, so we can see the lines now. it's hitting the character, but it doesn't recognize this as a hit. I wonder if there is a setting that disables this from being line traced. Well, I haven't found anything over here. So instead of line trace, what we could do is use our collision volumes. So when we press E, we'll have to check if we're colliding with something. That could be our other way of checking for if we want to interact with this character. Okay, let's keep this as is. We're going to add a new input, edit, project settings. Let's call this interact with character. And then once we figure out how to enable line tracing for characters as well, we might just rebind to the same thing. Let's give it R. Let's go with that. Interact with character. Sphere overlap actors is what we want. Sphere position is going to be the world get actor location. Sphere radius is 200, should do it. Actor class filter, well, we just want to collide with this type of character. So it's going to be AI character. And then return value if there is an overlap. Yeah, so if there is an overlap, actually we don't need to do the overlap. We can just do for each. And if there is no overlap, then the for each loop simply doesn't run. This is the actor. So we're going to get component by class. We're going to check if it has usable component, and it should. And if it has the usable component, then we should be able to check if it's valid. And if it is valid, then we're going to call on just use, and the color is us, which is self. Well, to do it, compile something must have input wired into them, into object types. Okay, make array. What type is it? Is it pawn, I think? The thing that we're colliding with. Compile, save. Let's try to play this. So we need R. Okay, so this thing works. It now is going to follow me, and then let me try. Camera is getting clipped because he's so close. So just stand right here. Yeah, so if I press R again, okay, nice. So the character will just stand there. And then I'm assuming we're able to complete this level. Cool. And then this thing still spawns our cube, right? Yeah. Which we're able to pick up. So here the line trace thing works. I need to figure out why it doesn't work on this character. So I'll try to do that, and then in the next video we're going to hopefully blend the two together into just the E key, because I'm not a fan of having multiple keys to do essentially what is supposed to be the same thing, like interact or use an object in game. And then we're going to add another pressure plate over here so that one is going to be enabled by the cube and the other is by this character. So essentially we can just get close to this, press R, and this guy is going to follow us, right? Yeah. You probably want to kind of slow down the movement. If you want to change these things, go to AI character, find a character component. In here you'll be able to find lots of different settings. So max walk speed is 300, so it's going to slow down the movement of the character. And then maybe somewhere here in the event tick you may want to introduce like a distance between 2 points, so that if the distance between you and the character is greater than something, only then should it move, kind of thing. So now the character should be slower. Yeah, so we're moving at 600 units and the character is moving at 300 units. Okay, in this video we created, essentially we duplicated the third-person character into what we're calling AI character. It's not really AI if you think about it, it's just custom behavior, which allows us to move this AI character using simple move to actor function, which in turn gets this nav mesh bounds volume, which we added around the entire level, so that it can navigate through various places. So it can essentially know which paths are valid. We then made the event dispatcher for this usable component even more powerful by it being able to pass certain parameters, such as the actor, which is the color. So now whenever onUse function is triggered, we also know who called this function. Like if you're building a multiplayer game, or if you're building something where multiple characters can activate the same thing, this is going to be quite useful. Finally, we added this input ad hoc interact with character, which is going to be removed. I'm going to merge this and this somehow eventually. But this is a nice recap of what we did previously with checking collision at runtime and seeing what we're colliding with, and then doing something with these objects that we're colliding. On that note, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.